The quantum sensors aboard the UES Magellan had been acting strange for days. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the readouts for the 100th time, trying to make sense of the anomalous energy signatures emanating from the edge of the Orion Nebula. After 15 years of deep space exploration, she thought she'd seen every natural phenomenon possible. This was different. "Commander Walsh," she called out, not taking her eyes off the screen. "I think you need to see this." The ship's commander, Alexandra Walsh, moved across the bridge with practiced ease, despite the artificial gravity fluctuations they'd been experiencing near the nebula. Her weathered face reflected the soft blue glow of the holographic displays as she leaned in to examine the readings. "Another quantum echo?" she asked, referring to the strange phenomenon they'd been tracking. "No, something new. The signal pattern. It's structured, too structured to be natural." Sarah pulled up a comparative analysis. "See these regularities? They're mathematical constants. Pi-phi, the fine structure constant, all encoded in a quantum-level broadcast." Commander Walsh's expression remained neutral, but Sarah noticed her hands tighten slightly on the console's edge. After the Mars incident 5 years ago, humanity had learned to be cautious about unknown signals. Could it be one of ours? A lost probe, maybe? No human technology could manage this level of quantum coherence. Whatever's generating this signal, it's far beyond our capabilities. The commander straightened up, squaring her shoulders. "How far to the source?" "About 6 light hours, just inside the nebula's outer arm." Walsh nodded once, decisive. "Plot a course. But keep our quantum shields at maximum. I won't have a repeat of Proxima." As the Magellan altered course, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. The ship's powerful engines hummed through the deck plates as they accelerated, the nebula's swirling colors growing larger on the main viewport. 3 hours into their approach, the signal changed. New patterns emerged, more complex, almost like, "It's responding to us." Sarah breathed, her fingers flying over the controls. "The signal, it's adapting to our presence. This isn't just a beacon, it's interactive." Commander Walsh immediately called for battle stations, a precaution that had become standard procedure for any first contact scenario. The crew moved with quiet efficiency, readying the ship's defensive systems while maintaining their approach. "Signal strength increasing," reported Lieutenant Peddle from Tactical. "Whatever it is, we're getting close." The nebula gases parted before them, revealing something that made every person on the bridge catch their breath. A structure hung in space, geometric and precise, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. It was massive, at least 3 kilometers long, and clearly artificial. "Multiple energy signatures detecting," Patil announced, his voice tense. "But they're not weapon signatures. They're more like welcome beacons." Before anyone could respond, every screen on the bridge lit up with the same message, displayed in perfect English. "Welcome, children of Earth. We are the archivists. We have waited 50,000 years for a species worthy of our legacy. Your arrival here was not by chance." Sarah's hands trembled as she analyzed the incoming data. "Commander, the quantum signatures, they're identical to fragments we found in ancient ruins across the galaxy. The ones we could never decode. Those were tests," the message continued. "Trials to measure your species' potential. You have proven yourselves ready for the next step. But time grows short, and there is much to share." Commander Walsh took a deep breath, then opened a channel. "This is Commander Alexandra Walsh of the United Earth ship Magellan. We receive your welcome and approach with peaceful intent." The structure's surface rippled, and a docking bay emerged from what had appeared to be solid metal. Another message appeared. "Enter, Alexandra Walsh of Earth. But be warned, what we offer is both gift and burden. The knowledge we possess comes with a price, for we did not enter our long sleep without cause. The galaxy holds dangers your species has yet to comprehend, and they draw near once again." As the Magellan carefully maneuvered toward the docking bay, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just crossed a threshold from which there would be no return. In the vastness of space, they had found not just signs of intelligent life, but mentors, guardians who had apparently been watching and waiting for humanity to prove itself ready. The question that burned in her mind, that she could see reflected in Commander Walsh's careful expression, was simple but haunting. Ready for what? The answer would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. The internal architecture of the Archivist Station defied human understanding. Dr. Sarah Chen walked alongside Commander Walsh through corridors that seemed to shift and reshape themselves, guided by streams of light that flowed like rivers through the metallic walls. Their escort, an archivist who called itself Nexus, moved with fluid grace despite its towering 3-meter height. "Your species learns quickly," Nexus observed, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through the air. The being's form rippled with patterns of bioluminescence that Sarah's instruments suggested were actually complex quantum states made visible. Most species required decades to grasp even basic quantum architecture. "You've begun to understand it in days. We've had practice adapting to new technologies," Commander Walsh replied diplomatically. "Though I admit, nothing quite like this." They entered what Nexus had termed the repository core, and Sarah had to remind herself to breathe. The chamber was vast, stretching up and down far beyond what should have been possible given the station's external dimensions. Streams of data flowed through the air like aurora borealis, and floating platforms held what appeared to be physical artifacts from 1,000 dead civilizations. "This is the accumulated knowledge of 50,000 years of galactic civilization," Nexus explained. "Every species that achieved spaceflight, every technology that was developed, every culture that bloomed and faded, all preserved here." Sarah stepped toward one of the data streams, watching as it automatically translated itself into human-readable formats. "This is incredible. The advances in physics alone could revolutionize our understanding of." She stopped, frowning at a particular data cluster. "These are defensive technologies, military applications." "Yes." Nexus luminescence dimmed slightly. "We had hoped to wait longer before showing you this part of our legacy, but time grows short." Commander Walsh's expression hardened. "The threat you mentioned in your welcome message. What exactly are we dealing with?" Instead of answering directly, Nexus gestured, and the entire chamber transformed. They found themselves standing in what appeared to be a recreation of an ancient battle. Massive ships of obviously different technological origins fought against a force that made Sarah's blood run cold, vessels that seemed to be made of living darkness, consuming everything they touched. "We called them the Void Hunters," Nexus said quietly. "They emerged from the spaces between galaxies 30,000 years ago. At first, we thought them merely another spacefaring species, different but perhaps comprehensible. We were wrong." The scene shifted, showing planets being consumed, entire civilizations falling. They don't simply destroy, they consume. Knowledge, technology, life itself, all becomes part of their collective. The more they consume, the stronger they become. The more they learn, the harder they are to fight. "That's why you went into hibernation," Sarah realized. "Not just to hide, but to deny them your knowledge." "Correct." Nexus gestured again, and the horrific images faded. "We were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Our technology, in their hands, would have made them unstoppable. So we hid ourselves and our knowledge, scattered our people across countless hidden stations like this one, and waited." "Waited for what?" Walsh asked, though Sarah suspected she already knew the answer. "For a species with the potential to succeed where we failed. One that could take our knowledge and use it in ways we never imagined. One that could think differently enough to find solutions we never saw." Nexus turned its luminescent gaze fully on them. "We waited for humanity." Sarah exchanged looks with her commander. "Why us? What makes humans so special? You adapt. You innovate, where other species perfect a technology and stick to it. Humans constantly seek new approaches. We've watched your development. In mere centuries, you've gone from primitive combustion engines to quantum drive. Your solutions are often inelegant, sometimes barely functional, but they work in ways no other species would consider. Another gesture, and a new data stream appeared, showing Earth's history of technological development. More importantly, you work together. Different cultures, different ideas, different approaches, all contributing to your species' advancement. This diversity of thought is unique among all the species we've encountered. And now the Void Hunters are returning. Walsh stated. It wasn't a question. Yes. Our sensors detected their scout ships entering the galaxy 6 months ago. The main fleet will arrive within the year. Nexus's form pulsed with urgent patterns. We offer you our knowledge, our technology, everything we have preserved. In return, we ask for your help in defeating an enemy we could not overcome. Walsh was quiet for a long moment, considering. How many other species have you awakened? Are we the only ones you're asking? You are the first, Nexus replied. And if you fail, you will be the last. The Void Hunters will consume everything. Sarah looked at the streams of knowledge flowing around them, each one representing potential advances that could transform human civilization overnight. But she also understood the weight of responsibility that came with it. Commander, she said softly, if we refuse, if we walk away. We don't walk away, Walsh interrupted firmly. Not from this. She turned to Nexus. Humanity accepts your offer, but we'll do this our way. Your knowledge combined with our methods, your technology filtered through our perspective. For the first time, Nexus's pattern showed what Sarah interpreted as hope. Then let us begin. Time is short, and there is much to teach you. As they delved into the repository's secrets, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if humanity's greatest strength, their tendency to reconstruct and reimagine everything they learned, might indeed be the key to facing an enemy that had defeated even the mighty archivists. The next few months would test that theory to its limits, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Lieutenant James Rodriguez stared at the holographic display in the station's modified combat center, his mind still adjusting to how quickly everything had changed. In just 3 months, humanity had absorbed more technological advancement than in the previous 1,000 years. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered were the 5 black shapes moving through the outer reaches of the system. Void Hunter scout vessels confirmed, announced Dr. Chen, her fingers dancing over controls that would have seemed like magic a few months ago. They're following the exact patrol pattern Nexus predicted. Commander Walsh stood at the center of the command hub, her calm presence anchoring the mixed crew of humans and archivists. Status of the experimental defense grid. Online but untested, Rodriguez reported. The defense system represented a perfect fusion of human and archivist thinking, quantum technology rebuilt according to human military doctrine. We're about to find out if our modifications work. They must work, Nexus stated, its luminescent patterns showing what Rodriguez had learned to recognize as concern. These scouts will report back to the main fleet if they detect our presence. Walsh nodded grimly. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. James, implement Operation Trojan. Rodriguez activated the system he'd helped design. Around the station, carefully crafted quantum signatures began broadcasting, but not the kind the archivists would have created. These were messy, chaotic, exactly the kind of emissions a newly spacefaring civilization might produce while experimenting with quantum technology. Bake deployed, he reported. Now we wait to see if they're hungry. They didn't have to wait long. The Void Hunter vessels altered course, moving to investigate the quantum signatures. Just as they'd hoped, the enemy's hunger for new technology proved irresistible. They're approaching the optimal engagement zone, Dr. Chen reported. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to initiate their consumption protocols. Walsh's voice was steel. Execute Phase 2. The trap was sprung. What had appeared to be random quantum emissions suddenly synchronized, creating a complex interference pattern that the archivists had deemed impossible. But humans had a long history of achieving the impossible through sheer stubbornness. The Void Hunter ships suddenly found themselves caught in a quantum web of humanity's design. Their attempts to consume the energy only strengthened the effect. Direct hit, Rodriguez announced, allowing himself a small smile. Their systems are destabilizing exactly as predicted. But the enemy proved why they were so feared. The trapped vessels began to adapt, their dark surfaces rippling as they attempted to learn and counter the quantum web's effects. "They're breaking free," Nexus warned, its patterns flaring with alarm. "Their adaptation rate exceeds our calculations." "Good thing we planned for that," Walsh replied. "Dr. Chen, initiate the Chaos Protocol." Sarah's hands flew across her console, introducing random variables now. This was the truly human element of their defense. Instead of trying to create a perfect, unbreakable trap, they'd design one that constantly changed in unpredictable ways. Every time the Void Hunters adapted to one configuration, the quantum web shifted to something completely different. "It's working," Rodriguez reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "They can't adapt fast enough to random changes. Their consumption protocols are backfiring." On the tactical display, they watched as the Void Hunter vessels began to break apart, their own hunger for knowledge and energy turned against them by human unpredictability combined with archivist precision. 4 targets eliminated, Rodriguez announced, one attempting to retreat. "Can't let it warn the others," Walsh decided. "Deploy the backup measure." Rodriguez activated their last surprise, modify human missiles carrying payloads based on archivist quantum technology. The weapons streaked across space, their trajectories seemingly random but precisely calculated. The final Void Hunter vessel vanished in a burst of contained quantum energy, leaving nothing but scattered particles that would look like natural debris to any observer. Silence fell over the command center as the reality of what they'd achieved sank in. For the first time in recorded history, Void Hunter vessels had been completely destroyed, leaving no trace of their technology to be recovered by the Ming fleet. "Remarkable," Nexus said finally, its patterns showing what Rodriguez had learned to recognize as awe. "In all our centuries of fighting them, we never considered making our defenses deliberately imperfect, deliberately chaotic. We always strove for perfection." "Perfect systems are predictable systems," Walsh replied. "And predictability is a weakness against an enemy that learns and adapts. Sometimes the best solution is controlled chaos." "This victory, while significant, is just the beginning," Nexus cautioned. "The main fleet will be far more powerful, far more adaptive." "Then we'll just have to be more creative," Sarah said, already pulling up new data streams. "We've proven our basic concept works. Now we can start improving it." Rodriguez watched as humans and archivists began collaborating on new improvements, new variations of their hybrid technology. The Void Hunters had never faced an enemy that thought like humans, one that embraced imperfection, that saw chaos as a tool rather than a flaw. For the first time since learning about the coming invasion, he felt real hope. The enemy might be ancient and powerful, but they were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn apparent weaknesses into unexpected advantages. The Archivist Station had changed dramatically in the 6 months since first contact. What had once been austere, geometrically perfect corridors now showed clear signs of human influence. Holographic interfaces had been simplified, spaces had been modified for human comfort, and there was even a hydroponics bay growing earth vegetables alongside ancient archivist flora. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in what they'd dubbed the Innovation Hub, surrounded by floating displays showing various hybrid technology projects. Beside her, a young engineer named Maya Patel was excitedly explaining her latest idea to their archivist mentor, Nexus. "See, we don't need to make the quantum shields perfectly symmetrical," Maya said, manipulating a holographic model. "If we introduce controlled irregularities here and here, we can create interference patterns that actually strengthen the overall field while making it harder to predict and counter." Nexus's luminescent patterns showed what Sarah had learned to recognize as fascination. The concept appears inherently flawed, and yet, the archivist's form shifted as it ran quantum calculations. The mathematical models suggest it would be 23% more effective than our original design. That's humanity in a nutshell, Commander Walsh commented as she entered the hub. Finding strength and flaws. Speaking of which, how's Project Pandora coming along? Sarah pulled up another display, showing a massive network of interconnected quantum sensors. We've successfully integrated human neural network architecture with archivist quantum computing. It's messy and probably offensive to any pure mathematician, but it works better than either system alone. They're learning to think like us, a new voice said. Lieutenant Rodriguez walked in, accompanied by another archivist named Echo. And we're learning to think like them. Watch this. He gestured at a nearby quantum interface, and instead of using the precise, calculated movements the archivists had taught them, his motions were fluid and intuitive. The interface responded perfectly, adapting to his style rather than demanding he adapt to it. Unprecedented, Echo commented, its patterns showing excitement. You've modified the quantum recognition protocols to accept imprecise input. Not modified, Rodriguez corrected with a grin. We taught them to learn. The interface evolves with each user, developing its own unique response patterns. No two interfaces work exactly the same way anymore, which would normally be a maintenance nightmare, Maya added, but actually makes the whole system more resilient. The Void Hunters can't predict what they can't pattern match. Walsh nodded approvingly. How are the fleet modifications coming? That's actually why we're here, Rodriguez said. We've finished upgrading the first battle group with hybrid tech. The crews are adapting faster than anyone expected. Turns out decades of sci-fi have prepared humanity pretty well for working with advanced technology. Sarah pulled up the fleet status display. 20 Earth ships now bristled with modified archivist technology, their formerly sleek hulls now sporting crystalline growths and quantum field emitters. They looked like they'd been designed by artists rather than engineers, which in a way they had been. The real breakthrough came when we stopped trying to integrate the technologies perfectly, Maya explained. Instead, we let them interact naturally, building on each other's strengths. The results aren't pretty, but they're incredibly effective. Beauty is a matter of perspective, Nexus observed. We see great beauty in how your species approaches problems. You create solutions we would never have conceived, precisely because you don't follow our paths of logic. The latest battle simulations show a 300% increase in combat effectiveness, Echo reported. And that's just with the current modifications. The learning algorithms are still evolving. Walsh studied the fleet display thoughtfully. And the crews? How are they handling the changes? Better than we hoped, Rodriguez replied. The neural interfaces we developed bridge the gap between human intuition and archivist precision. Crews report that the ships feel more like extensions of themselves now, rather than just machines they operate. Sarah brought up another display, this one showing the tactical doctrine they'd developed. We're essentially creating a whole new kind of warfare. The Void Hunters excel at adapting to and consuming standard tactics and technology, so we're giving them something that never stays standard long enough to adapt to. There's something else, Maya said hesitantly. Something we discovered by accident. She pulled up data from their latest experiments. The quantum fields we're generating. They don't just protect against the Void Hunters' consumption abilities. Under certain conditions, they can actually disrupt the connection between consumed knowledge and the hunters themselves. Everyone in the room went still. Nexus's patterns showed intense focus. You mean, we might be able to free some of what they've consumed, Maya confirmed. Not everything, probably not even most of it, but even the possibility is more than we ever achieved in our war, Echo said softly. Once something was consumed, we considered it lost forever. Walsh straightened, her expression determined. Keep developing that angle. Even if we can only free a fraction of what they've taken, That's knowledge and technology that could help us fight them. A warning tone sounded throughout the station. Sarah quickly pulled up the long-range sensor data and felt her breath catch. Commander, we're detecting multiple quantum disturbances at the edge of the galaxy. Big ones. The main fleet, Nexus confirmed, patterns shifting to show alarm. They're arriving sooner than we calculated. Walsh's voice was steady as she asked, "How long?" At their current velocity, 2 weeks, maybe less. The commander looked around the room at the unlikely alliance they'd forged, humans and archivists working together, each making the other stronger. Then we got 2 weeks to finish preparing our surprises for them. Let's make them count. As the station erupted into focused activity, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and anticipation. They were about to face an enemy that had defeated the most advanced civilization in galactic history. But that enemy had never faced anything like humanity before, a species that turned chaos into strategy and found strength in imperfection. The real test was about to begin. The void between stars erupted with quantum fire as the first wave of Void Hunter vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. Their dark forms, each kilometers long, seemed to absorb the very starlight around them. The main fleet had arrived. In the command hub of the Archivist Station, now transformed into the combined fleet's tactical center, Commander Walsh watched the enemy's approach on the holographic display. Beside her, Nexus's luminescent patterns showed a complex mix of emotions. 347 vessels, Dr. Chen reported, her voice steady despite the stakes. Energy signatures match historical records. This is their main combat fleet. Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up from his tactical station. Hybrid defense grid is online. All ships report ready for quantum cinch protocols. The human archivist fleet waited in formation around the station, 20 Earth vessels, and the station itself now transformed by their shared technology. They looked almost organic, their hulls rippling with quantum fields that defied standard physics. "They're scanning us," Maya reported from her engineering station. "Getting a lot of attention on our hybrid modifications." "Good," Walsh said grimly. "Let them look. Let them think they can understand what we've built." She turned to Nexus. "Are you sure about this strategy? It goes against everything your people learned about fighting them." The Archivist's patterns shifted to show determination, which is precisely why it might work. "We fought them with perfection and lost. Perhaps it's time to embrace chaos." Walsh nodded and opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, implement Operation Wildfire. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and don't stick to any pattern for too long. Good hunting." The Void Hunters struck first, their forward vessels launching waves of energy that sought to consume rather than destroy. But the human archivist fleet didn't attempt to block these attacks. Instead, they let them hit their quantum shields, which fragmented and reformed in unpredictable patterns. "They're trying to analyze our defensive capabilities," Rodriguez reported. "Consumption beams are being deflected and scattered. Shield efficiency at 92% and holding." "Now," Walsh ordered, "show them what humanity brought to this fight." The hybrid fleet sprang into action, but not as a coordinated unit. Each ship moved independently, their quantum drives creating interference patterns that made their movements impossible to predict. The Void Hunters' attempts to adapt were met with constantly changing tactics and technology. Earth ships dove through their formation, quantum weapons firing in seemingly random patterns that somehow synchronized to create devastating effects. Where the Void Hunters expected to find weakness in this chaos, they instead found themselves unable to establish any effective counter-strategy. "Multiple enemy vessels showing signs of systemic failure," Chen announced. "The quantum disruption fields are working. They can't maintain cohesion between their consumed technologies." But the enemy was far from defeated. The Void Hunter ships began to merge, combining into larger forms that could bring more power to bear. Their adaptive capabilities were overwhelming even their own previous limitations. "They're learning," Nexus warned, patterns flaring with concern. "Adapting faster than we calculated." Good, Walsh replied with a fierce smile. Maya, initiate Project Pandora. Maya's hands flew across her console, releasing quantum virus now. This was humanity's masterstroke, a quantum program that didn't try to attack the Void Hunters directly, but instead introduced subtle errors into their adaptation processes. The more they tried to adapt, the more these errors would compound. Enemy vessels showing increasing signs of instability, Rodriguez reported. Their merged forms are becoming unsustainable. The battle space became a chaos of quantum energies and tactical improvisation. Human intuition guided archivist technology in ways its creators had never imagined. Ships performed maneuvers that should have torn them apart, their hybrid systems somehow holding together through sheer determination and innovative engineering. Sir, Chen called out suddenly. I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations in the enemy fleet. The quantum virus, it's not just disrupting their adaptations, it's causing cascade failures in their consumed technology database. On the tactical display, they watched as Void Hunter vessels began to break apart, their carefully accumulated knowledge and technology turning against them. Some of their consumed technologies were actually breaking free, releasing bursts of long-lost energy signatures into space. They're retreating, Rodriguez announced, disbelief clear in his voice. Multiple vessels attempting emergency FTL jumps. Don't let them escape completely, Walsh ordered. They need to survive to spread the word, to let the rest of their kind know that this galaxy is no longer undefended. The human archivist fleet pressed their advantage, their chaotic but effective tactics herding the retreating Void Hunters into specifically calculated vectors. When the dark ships finally jumped to FTL, they carried with them not just a defeat, but an infection. The quantum virus that would continue to disrupt their ability to consume and adapt. As the last enemy vessel vanished, a profound silence fell over the command hub. After 50,000 years, the Void Hunters had finally been driven back. Not by perfect technology or superior numbers, but by the combination of human unpredictability and archivist knowledge. Status report, Walsh demanded, ever practical even in victory. 12 ships reporting moderate damage, no casualties, Rodriguez replied. The quantum shields performed beyond all projections. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, showing no signs of regrouping. The quantum virus appears to have infected approximately 60% of their fleet, Maya added. It will spread through their network, making it virtually impossible for them to launch another large-scale invasion. Nexus's patterns showed what Sarah had learned to read as joy and wonder. In all our years of fighting them, we never imagined victory could look like this. We sought perfection, but you showed us that imperfection, controlled chaos, was the key all along. That's the thing about humanity, Walsh said, watching as the hybrid fleet regrouped, their quantum fields shimming with victory. We've never achieved perfection, and we never will. But we've learned to make our flaws work for us instead of against us. So what now? Rodriguez asked, looking at the station's long-range sensors that showed the galaxy stretching out before them. Now, Walsh replied, we keep going. There's a galaxy full of sleeping archivist stations out there, and probably more threats we haven't met yet. But together, she looked at their hybrid fleet, at the impossible marriage of human chaos and archivist precision. Together, we can face whatever comes next. The station hummed with power as humans and archivists celebrated their victory, but also began planning for the future. They had proven that the combination of their cultures and technologies could achieve what neither could alone. It was just the beginning of a new era in galactic history, one where humanity's greatest strengths, adaptability, creativity, and the courage to embrace imperfection, would help guide the way forward. In the vast darkness between stars, their hybrid ships stood as a testament to what could be achieved when ancient wisdom learned to dance with human chaos, and when perfection gave way to possibility.